Alright, I don't want to seem dramatic, but this camera has literally changed how, as a filmmaker, I look at cameras. Let's talk about it. And because this is the longest I've ever spent with a single product before creating my in-depth review, I wanted to be thorough. And so, of course, this one's a little bit longer, but everything is time-stamped below. So if you're looking for a specific topic or section, feel free to jump around, but I hope you enjoy this video in its entirety. Now, obviously this video took a lot of work, so if you wouldn't mind taking a brief moment to hit that like button and get subscribed for future content. But with that, no more delay, let's get into it with the Pocket 6K Pro. All right, so first we're gonna rattle off some quick fire tech specs because we're obviously gonna go in depth to what all this means, but maybe you don't know much about the camera. Here are the important ones to highlight. The Pocket 6K Pro costs $2,500 for the base camera itself. And then the two main accessories, of course, are the viewfinder, which is an extra $500, and the battery grip, which you can get for around $180, but I actually saw it on Amazon for around $150, so that's fluctuating a bit. Now, of course, this is a 6K Super 35 sensor, and with that 6K you can shoot up to 50 FPS when using the full sensor, but if you go 2:4:1 aspect ratio, you can get 6K 60 FPS. And then pretty much your one slow motion option is 2.8K at 120 FPS. That's going to be in a 17:9 aspect ratio. It's also going to have a pretty gnarly crop on it. For lenses, it uses an active EF mount. It's got 13 stops of dynamic range. It's actually got dual native ISO, both at 400 and 3200. It's got built-in NDs at 2, 4, and 6 stops. And this thing's got ports for days, 2 mini XLR ports, power port, USB Type-C, HDMI in, headphone, and a 3.5mm mic jack. It's got a 5-inch 1920 by 1080p tilt display with a peak brightness of 1500 nits. And I think that about covers it for all the tech specs. So let's talk about the blue tint issue that we all saw and I made a video on many months ago when it first came out. Well, the short answer is it's fixed, and they fixed it in a way that I didn't really expect them to. I think a lot of people like myself expect them to just come out with a firmware update and be like, hey, it's fixed, and then we update it, look at our screens, be like, cool, it's not blue anymore. But they kind of went the extra little mile and created a utility in the menu system. And I think this is really smart because there were some people who had like really blue screens and then mild blue screens. Sometimes it went away. And so rather than just trying to send out one calibration to just everyone's screens that may not have fixed everyone's the same way, they just added a simple utility that allows you to adjust the tint and white balance of the screen until it looks good to you. So in terms of design, the Pocket 6K Pro has definitely been getting bigger each year. The Pocket 4K and the 6K was bigger, and now the 6K Pro is definitely the bulkiest and biggest of the Pocket family thus far. Now, personally, I like the bulkier, beefier design because it actually is a full hand grip now to me. The Pocket 4K, my pinky and part of my other finger was really starting to hang off. Pocket 6K, my pinky was still kind of right on the edge, a little uncomfortable. This one is significantly taller. I know everyone's hand size is differently, but now I can have all five fingers comfortably on the grip without anything falling off. It just feels a lot more secure. Also, a small detail, but a huge benefit is the fact that they now have 2 quarter-20s on the bottom. This is huge for when you're putting on a camera plate. You're not gonna have it kind of wiggle loose. Pretty much all cinema cameras have at least 2 mounting points on the bottom. Honestly, that's probably my favorite design change. And then of course we have the viewfinder on top. This is a full tiltable viewfinder. It's all a no tool install and take off. Literally just a little thumb screw. It's nice not to have any glare on the screen, but also 3 points of contact. You're actually going to get better handheld footage when using that because you got both hands on it as well as pushed up against your face. You're going to get steadier footage if you don't have a gimbal nearby. Now, of course, inside we have the built-in NDs. We have 2, 4, and 6 stop. These are great. We're going to talk about more later in the image quality section. So let's talk about the menu. Now, I have raved about Blackmagic's menu systems for years because in my experience, they are the best, hands down. Of course, with menu systems, you're gonna get used to whatever you're used to. Well, I pick up a Sony menu or Canon and wanna puke, if that's what you've been shooting on for years, of course you're gonna find it second nature and there's nothing wrong with that. But when I first started using Blackmagic, at that time I was playing with a bunch of different brands to kind of see what I liked best. And so when I was getting into the video world, I was coming from Nikon. So at that time, I had never really played with Canon, Sony, Blackmagic, Red, any of the other big brands. And Blackmagic by far was the quickest and easiest to learn. And ever since then, with updates, they've only gotten better at the design. Everything is just nicely organized. And of course, I think it's thanks to the fact that Blackmagic cameras have larger displays like this 5-inch one. Everything is kind of spaced out and the buttons can be pretty large. And when you're using something like gloves while shooting in the winter, this can be very helpful. I like the fact that while you're on the live preview screen, you have access to your most important settings, everything from formatting your hard drive to changing the audio gain on whatever audio port you're currently using. You of course can change your ISO, your aperture, white balance, all the usual stuff as well. And to me, since this camera is dedicated 100% to being a video camera, those are all the settings you have. It can be kind of confusing when you're using a hybrid camera because you have to have a huge menu system that covers both photo stills and video. And so sometimes you can be changing a picture profile or an image size and you not realize that you're under the photo stills while you really want to be changing the video setting. I'm curious, I know I'm not the only one out there who has used multiple brands of cameras. Do you agree with me on this? Because I'm just obsessed with Blackmagic menus and I don't think anyone does it better, but feel free to disagree with me in the comments down below. So let's talk about battery life. This is definitely obviously one of the most requested topics for people to talk about because it's definitely the most debated, and obviously one of the biggest cons to Blackmagic cameras are the internal batteries. Now Blackmagic says you'll get an hour worth of use with the included battery, and it's pretty much true. I nearly get exactly an hour. With a lot of shooting in full 6K RAW, any setting you want at max brightness, I was getting around an hour. It's been a while since I did the battery tests. I'll throw them on the screen right now. And then I was extra curious if you never used the back screen and only used the viewfinder, if that would help at all. And so I ran a test where I basically covered the viewfinder and then hit record and see how long I could record. To be honest, I thought that it would go like twice as long or something, but it's not really the case. It added like, I think 20 or so minutes to it. So it definitely helps. So having the viewfinder out in the field, if you're starting to get low battery, use the viewfinder more. You know, it's like pushing the eco button in a car, get you a little bit more. Now again, like my other rigs, like my Pocket 6K I'm shooting on, I have my Anton Bauer V190 hooked up, which is a big ass V-mount battery, and that I can shoot 14 hours straight. I never have to replace the battery on a shoot day when shooting with this setup. And Anton Bauer has come out with some really cool slim batteries. I haven't tested those myself, but I know Armando Fierro did a video showing his setup using the slim Anton Bauer one, so you can check his video out to see how well that worked out for him. I'll leave it down in the description below. So for me, the reason I didn't add the battery grip on the bottom is because it makes it significantly taller, and when using it on a gimbal or just handheld use, it was a little bit too much of a vertical setup than what I liked it for. So for my setup, I just chose to keep the camera with a no battery grip, and then I just carry around 2 or 3 extra batteries just in my bag. Now to answer the ultimate important question, did I have battery anxiety every time I was shooting? And the answer is yes, very, very, very much so. I was constantly keeping my eye in the top right hand corner looking at the battery indicator, and I was shutting on and off the camera every chance that I wasn't shooting in order to preserve. Whereas again, my V-mount setup on my Pocket 6K, this thing just stays on and in between shoots and setups and everything, and there's no problems whatsoever. Now, of course, this is the trade-off that all of us Blackmagic users have decided. If we want 12-bit RAW, 6K, all that good stuff, that the powerhouse that's packed in here, it's gonna come at a energy cost. It's just nowhere near what a V-mount battery can provide. And so I will continue to be jealous of my hybrid camera friends who pop in one battery and are good for the whole day. Next up, we have Ergonomics. As I talked about in the beginning of the video, my Pocket 6 6K setup, which I'm filming on right now, is pretty built out. It's useful in that way for bigger productions because I can basically shoot all day with one big battery. I got the focus grip, matte boxes, cables galore. But with the Pocket 6K Pro, I really wanted to keep it to a minimal level. I wanted this to be a no cable setup, or at least as minimal cables as possible the majority of the time, and pretty much just shoot how it is out of the box, obviously with a lens attached. And this is where it's really changed my filmmaker's mindset, because I always generally thought that the bigger the setup was, the cooler it is. And definitely, I don't think any filmmaker out there is going to disagree with me that there are definitely perks to having a bigger setup. For people who don't really know cameras, if you show up to their business or wherever you're filming and they see you have a huge rig, they're immediately going to think more professional and just be more impressed. Where if you walk up with like point and shoot your phone or just a single DSLR setup like this, they may not be as impressed until they hopefully see your work. Again, it's not fact that your camera being bigger means it's better. That's just how a lot of people who aren't in the camera industry perceive it. But I wanted something that is just super run and gun. The fact that I can go handheld, throw this on a tripod, and throw it on a gimbal in the matter of seconds was really important to me. And it's really changed my style, because with a nearly 16 pound setup like the rig I'm shooting on, I have to think in terms of how a traditional filmmaker shoots. Everything kind of has to be planned. Oh, what gear do I need? Is that tripod going to be able to support it? I need to bring my big slider. Okay, I want gimbal, so I got to use a big gimbal. I got to spend a long time making sure it's perfectly balanced because it's pretty much maxing out the payload, and the list goes on and on and on of thought process that goes into every single shot. And what that does is slows me down, and I come home with maybe like a third of the shots that I originally wanted. Again, for like a feature film, short film, big production commercial, that's fine because, you know, you do those weeks of prep and shot listing prior, so you know exactly the shots you need. But as a content creator shooting YouTube videos or smaller commercial projects that are just more run and gun, you don't take that prep time, and so you need to just kind of be ready and kind of versatile. And that is what this camera is. It's versatile. It's relatively lightweight. I can hold this thing and operate it all day long. The ergonomics with using the viewfinder I think are great. Even if you don't have a gimbal, I shoot 6K 50 on this all the time. And if I put my eye up to it, I get way more stable shots because I have 3 points of contact on the camera, and I just love the way that the camera moves. And so yes, while big setups and rigs are crucial for certain jobs and shoots, I now understand why so many creators and YouTubers are looking for the smallest setup that also gives them the best image that they're going after. Now let's talk image quality. Now, of course, image quality at the end of the day is arguably the most important part, but this section isn't gonna be super long just because it's not that different than the Pocket 6K. And that's not a bad thing. I really have not many complaints. And with the new Gen 5 color science, which of course you can get on the Pocket 4K and 6K, the image is just incredible. And I gotta say, the built-in NDs have been a life changer. You can probably scroll back to old tweets of mine saying I don't really care about built-in NDs, but man, I was wrong. Having the built-in NDs on this camera body have been amazing. So many more times I get the depth of field that I want, and I can just get gorgeous shots like this, hopefully that you've been seeing throughout. All these were shot with built-in NDs so I could get that nice dreamy look. Yes, I have the Dream Effects filter on top, so that extra little glow is from that filter. I also love the addition of Q1 and Q3. I always shot Q5. Q0 I would shoot for big budget stuff or VFX were involved, but Q0 really just ate into the memory card so much. But I'm a person who loves to shoot as high quality as I can, as much as possible. And so Q1 and Q3 is the perfect in between for Q5. So in terms of image quality, I have been so pleased with what Blackmagic has been doing in general, and I just think it's awesome. Obviously, image quality is a little bit subjective, but it has great highlight rollouts for only 13 stops of dynamic range, which is pretty low for a cinema camera. I would love to see it get to that 15 like on the Ursa Mini Pros. Yeah, let me know what you guys think about the image quality down in the comments below. So now I want to talk about accessories in terms of rigging, because even though the whole point of this video is about keeping this as minimalistic as possible, which is how I've been using it the majority of the time. There are now starting to come out some cages. Small rig is finally on the market, but I actually got my hands on the 𝗦𝗧𝗨𝗙𝗙 cage here, and I've been using it the past handful of weeks, and so I want to talk about the experience with it. So I do have the full cage, however, I've only been using half of it. We'll talk about why that in a second. It's quite easy to install, and there's actually a little magnetic kind of clip here on the bottom that you can use to screw in, so you don't have to carry around a quarter or a flathead screwdriver. So of course it's riddled with different mounting points on it. It does come with a little divider for the HDMI port and the USB Type-C cable. There's also a hot shoe right here on the left-hand side, which is kind of angled a little bit, and I almost like it. And so that's where I've been mounting the Sennheiser mic when I've been using that. So that's what that looks like. And then I've been using the 𝗦𝗧𝗨𝗙𝗙 NATO rail handle here, which tightens down really easily. And you may be asking why I have the handle going to the front. It's actually usability. If you have the viewfinder, having a top handle can present an issue. Doing it this way, I can get the majority of the vertical height. But if I do it the way I normally use, a handle like that, can't really see the viewfinder. I can't get my eye right there because the back of the handle is blocking it. Maybe they should have made it a little bit shorter. So if you don't have the viewfinder, it doesn't really matter. Now the reason that I use the half cage rather than the full is because I have finally found a setup that is easy to put on a gimbal. If you've been a long time follower of this channel, last year I did a bunch of videos on the Crane 3S and trying to balance my Pocket 6K setup, which again is 15 pounds, which is pretty much the max load of what this can handle. All right, so now we got the base plate installed. Once we mount this on here, you can see how even fully extended out, there's not too much room onto the side. Pocket cameras are extremely wide, which has been why gimbal use has been pretty frustrating in the past. I had to take half the cage off so that I could get it as far to the right as possible. That eliminates a lot of the wiggle that people are having issues with. And for the most part, I have this stabilized, but of course, every time I install it, this is gonna be a little different. All right, that's pretty close. And I have no issues whatsoever. The Crane 3S and even my 2S can handle it just fine, but I just really like the full clearance that the 3S has. The other nice thing is normally I have to rig up a monitor because the previous cameras didn't have any tilt action or anything, but it's extremely useful for all angles, how I can just go right down here, tilt down, get my low shots, or if I need to get high shots, I can tilt down like that. But there's even another reason why I love this setup so much. Be right back. All right, so this is the power pack that is an optional upgrade for the Crane 3S. Now, technically it's meant to power the gimbal to give it like an extra boost to have that like 15, 16 pound max capacity. I don't use that port on it. I use a regular D-tap to Blackmagic, whatever power adapter. I use the included little mini V-mount bracket right here. Plug into power, and now I basically have a small V-mount battery plugged in. So I can get about 3, sometimes even 4, almost 4 hours running the camera. And so now I can have a really good amount of time for gimbal use and not have to worry about using just that small internal battery that I have to constantly change out. So it's finally safe to say that if you have the Blackmagic Pocket 6K Pro, or granted the 6K or 4K kind of broken down into a minimalist setup, it flies on a gimbal very nicely. I haven't had any wobble issues, and I've used this setup a ton. Let's talk media. So I want to give a huge shout out to Angelbird, because without them, this setup and video probably wouldn't be possible. So they hooked me up with their kind of Pocket 6K kit, which comes with a 1 terabyte SSD that you can plug into the USB-C port, as well as a 512 gig CFast 2.0 card. And that's what I currently have in here, and that's what I've basically been using for the past handful of months to shoot on. You know, if I'm gonna recommend media, I want something that is ultimately the most reliable thing out there. And I can safely say I never had a single issue with this. Not with transferring files, there's nothing ever corrupted or any issues. I never had overheating issues to where it stopped recording in camera and I was out shooting in near 100-degree weather, again recording for 20 minutes or so straight. The card reader from Angelbird also built like a tank, and I love the fact that all of the cables like recess into the card reader. So the actual USB connection is safely like an inch into the card rather than sticking out and having a break point right there. Just great design. Now the 6K Pro, like its previous little brothers, has a SD card as well, and I only have one SD card. It's a 128 gig SanDisk Ultra, and it actually does pretty well. It can record Q5 no problem. Once I start going lower than that, Q0 definitely, it only records for like 5 seconds. Q3 I could get a couple minutes, but it was a little less reliable. So if you go the SD card route, make sure you have as fast as one as possible. But yeah, now mostly I use the Angelbird SSD as a scratch disk on my computer because I just love using the CFast 2.0 card. Again, keeping to that no cable setup. I love the fact that it's just in there. Nothing is exposed. I can keep my ports covered. It's just such a good setup. Again, thanks to Angelbird for sending this out. There's no money exchange. They aren't a channel sponsor or anything. Just they hooked me up with the media, and it's super appreciated. All right, let's talk audio. So towards the beginning when we were talking about tech specs, I mentioned we have a couple audio ports here. We got 2 mini XLRs, a 3.5mm mic jack, and of course, built-in mics, just the stereo mics included. Having the addition of a second mini XLR port from the Pocket 6K is definitely a nice bonus. If you are a person doing interviews and you want to use shotgun mics or professional mics in general, that is awesome. It's not a huge standout thing in the market nowadays because was it the Canon C70 that has 1 or 2, as well as the Sony FX3. That with the top handle has 2 full XLR ports and a whole bunch of other cameras. So, but I love it. That's what I'm recording into right now, my Rode NTG4 Plus, straight into the mini XLR port. Of course, they both have phantom power and it sounds great. Now for the 3.5mm mic jack, I've actually been testing out the Sennheiser MKE 200. This mic had me intrigued due to its size and design. I've been using the Rode Micro for years, and I know a lot of people use the Rode VideoMic Pro. Of course, those sound great, but this, I just really liked how compact it was, and the fact that I was tired of the Video Micro had the kind of vibration reduction thing that nearly broke a bunch of times, and I didn't like the wind filter was constantly popping off. And so this I actually use without the windscreen a lot of times because it kind of has a built-in blimp, but if it does get really windy, it does have one that it comes with. That's what it looks like fully on, and that's definitely not coming off unlike the Video Micros. Sound quality, it's definitely probably not on par with the Rode VideoMic Pro or whatever, or the DD V3. Again, it's like 80 bucks or something. Super small, super compact. I don't really use mics like this too often, but it's nice to have just in case. All right, so it's the time in the video where we gotta talk about cons, because as much as I like this camera and there's a lot of good things to say about it, obviously, there are things that I really don't like or just gotta put into the cons list. First up is the battery life. Yes, they've improved upon it each year that they've made a new camera, but to me, an hour is still pretty rough for the user who is trying to, again, use this as a content creation camera, run and gun, keeping minimal setup like this. Like I said before, the battery grip would certainly be useful because you can throw 3 in there, but I just didn't like how tall it was going to make the setup for me. And I definitely just constantly had battery anxiety where I was always looking in that top right hand corner, watching the voltage go down. Now the internal built-in NDs are nice because of course they are specifically designed to work with this camera. And so you have very little color shift, but once you're up to ND6, there definitely is a little bit of magenta shift, at least on mine here. It's not terrible by any means, much better than my Tiffin variable ND, but if I had to nitpick, it's definitely there. One extreme annoyance with the viewfinder is the eye cup. Granted, I have the large one installed, but it's the one that's most comfortable. It comes off a little too easily. It's not going to come off if you just like shake it. It's not that bad, but countless times have I been walking and like brush it up against my leg or just hit it with my hand in some way and it just kind of popped off. I actually at the zoo one time looked down and just saw the empty viewfinder and had to retrace my steps for about 10 minutes to find this on the ground. It was stepped on and stomped all over. Thankfully it's rubber, so it was fine. But you know, I like how easy it is to put on, but I'd be fine if it was a little harder to put on, but much harder to come off, if that makes sense. And finally, my biggest con, and probably the one thing that keeps me from, you know, being a little extra about this camera of like, oh, this is near my dream camera, blah, 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 is the build. Talked about the plastic body before, and it just feels a little bit too much like a toy. When you're using cine lenses like this, which weigh about 2.5 pounds, when I hold the camera like this, my wrist is, it's pretty rough because all the weight is up here. I just want to drop this front so bad because the camera itself is so light. Oh my gosh, taking the lens off. This is so light. But as soon as you put a decently heavy lens on it, it just feels really kind of off balanced. And then again, the reason that I kind of put the half cage or possibly will put a full cage on this is for protection, because if this thing drops, odds are it's going to be pretty scuffed up, crack, break, or destroyed, because in comparison to other cameras on the market, this just feels a little bit too much like a toy. And it makes me pretty sad because obviously the image and the power that you can get out of this thing is definitely not toy-like. I wish I knew how much extra this camera would have to cost to get a, you know, traditional DSLR red camera ruggedized body. Because if it was like 500 bucks more, if this camera had to be like $29.99, but you got a really impressive solid metal or carbon fiber or whatever build, I would happily pay the extra. It keeps me from taking it to more crazy weather scenarios. You know, if it's raining even a little bit out there, these lenses are fully weatherproof, but the camera got huge vents at the top and the plastic built like it. I just don't have a lot of confidence that this could survive a lot of rain or snow. I've gotten it decently wet and some snow on it, but that made me really nervous each time. Whew, okay, I think we talked about pretty much everything. I guarantee you as I'm editing this, I'm definitely going to be like, I forgot to talk about that one thing. Always happens. Yep, I did it. Didn't talk about low light in this video. And I think it's primarily because it's just like the Pocket 6K. So yeah, I'm gonna link this video down in the description. It's by a creator called Gold Wolf. Cool channel name. It's real short, just a couple minutes, basically specifically on the Pocket 6K in low light, but 6K, 6K Pro basically act the same in low light. It's a low light boss. Go check it out. Yeah, sorry. But ultimately, should you upgrade to the Pocket 6K Pro? If you already have the Pocket 6K and you're still debating it at the end of this video, I'm gonna say probably not, because unless one of the big new standout features like the tiltable screen, the built-in NDs, the viewfinder, if none of those really stand out to you, then I'd probably just save your money and hang on to the Pocket 6K. Certainly the battery life, the extra 10-15 minutes that you're gonna get from the internal ones, I don't think are worth the extra money. But personally, in my subjective opinion, I absolutely think there is not another camera on the market that touches this in its price point, with only a couple cons, none of which have anything to do with reliability in my experience. I'm absolutely in love with the Pocket 6K Pro. And there you have it, guys. That is the Pocket 6K Pro. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you're not subscribed already, I would appreciate if you change that. Give this video a like and let me know how you liked this super in-depth review down in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. And I'm not gonna get up because I'm kind of trapped in here with this setup and lights and stuff. So we're just gonna fade out.